button now. Okay, so welcome everyone, and I appreciate you guys going over your background as it relates to end-user compute as well as thin client solutions. We had a lot of great conversations there about what a zero client is and why I think they're bad, and hardware versus software. We're going to go over more of that here in just a second. But my name is Andy Whiteside. I'm with XenTegra. I'm the founder of the company, and we have focused on end-user compute. Former Citrix engineer. Love this space and spend a lot of time working in it. We have with us Alona from IGEL. Alona, you want to give a quick background on yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Alona Kremko. I'm an inside sales engineer at IGEL. I was previously with Wise, so I have been working in the thin client VDI industry for a while, so very familiar with everything that was brought up here, and Andy made a lot of good points that we hope to show you what IGEL can address. It is the best software conversion tool out there. Nobody else has it, from the competitive standpoint, where you can take an existing PC, laptop, and turn it into thin client within like 5 minutes, and then put it under management on next 10. You will see it in Andy's presentation. And that's what I've been doing. So I've been working with customers, showing them the power of the management software, talking about IGEL. So, and here we are. And thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah, and one quick thing on the presentation we're going to do. It is a lot about IGEL, but we're going to show you some other options too that you could use that are either free or very cheap ways to convert a Windows device into a thinner or dumber device or a thin client. So it's not just going to be IGEL. We're going to open it up to some other things as well. Okay. Sorry. So this slide here, make sure you can see my screen. Yep. Okay. So this slide here, there's a contest going on to win a Tesla P100D. I don't even know what that is. I just know Tesla's a pretty cool car. And it's a software-defined car. But Alona, while I'm kind of rambling on here throughout the presentation, if you could get with Anit and get us an updated code for this. So everybody who attends one of our IGEL events, it gets to go out and register for the Tesla that they're going to be giving away at VMworld sometime like midsummer or so. So definitely.
Yeah, I was just. I will get the code, guys. I don't have it on hand. I will talk to our marketing folks and get it to you by the end of the presentation. So.
Yeah, we'll get it and post it in the chat window or email it back out to you after this is over. So this is what the car is all about, right? The world's fastest production car available, 0 to 60, 2.8, 315 mile range, autopilot, all that good technology stuff. And why that's important to pause here and hit on this really hard is this car is a piece of equipment, but it's kind of commodity equipment. What's special about this car is the software that makes it run and efficient and managed and the ability to update this. So I don't know the exact number here, but one great example of this car is the fact that when we first got this slide together, when IGEL gave me the slide, the speed from 0 to 60 was, I think, 2.8. I think now it's like 2.28, and now it's like 2.2 even or something like that. My point is the range has gotten better and the speed has gotten better, not because they made the physical car better, but because they made the software that drives the car better. And that's the thing about the software-driven solutions like an IGEL solution. You can buy their thin client, but the software is going to make that thin client, the physical thin client, better and faster as they continue to evolve it, unlike with your car, right? The best car day the car ever has is the day you buy it. With a Tesla, hopefully the best day of that car is going to be more towards the end of the end of the life of the car because the software is going to get better. And we live in a software-defined world. My son's getting into technology a little bit now, and he built his first computer, and he's geeking out over the hardware. And I had to tell him last night, don't worry about the hardware, son, because you're not going to work on hardware someday. It's all going to be software, and you need to go over there. And that PowerShell class I'm telling you to sign up for, you need to sign up for it. Don't get all excited about the hardware because the hardware is going to be commodity in pretty much everything someday. All right, so Alona will get us the code. Let's see. Oh, something else to tell you about. We're going to talk about converting devices here in a little bit. One of the things that IGEL is doing with, in conjunction with AMD and Samsung is you can get the Samsung all-in-one devices and convert those or get those from IGEL. And if you're looking to have a all-in-one experience with a really high-end piece of equipment, you can buy it from Samsung, converted with IGEL. And you can really get the best of breed all in one with the best of breed management software as well, and the best of breed software, client software. All right, so we'll get the code. So here's what I want to talk to you guys about, and that is the idea of extending the life of PCs and what the IGEL solution is all about. And here's how we start. We start with the translation of what IGEL means. That's the German for it. Don't get hung up on that. It's really all about intelligent German electronics. That's how the Americans translate IGEL. But here's what I really want you to know. So if you've been around any trade shows, you've seen IGEL as the hedgehog company. They hand out little hedgehogs. I think the hedgehog's coming back out of retirement at some point with a cape on it, is what I understand. But anyway, that's how you recognize IGEL, right? IGEL in German means hedgehog. That's why they have the hedgehogs they hand out. But here's the thing I want you to take away, and it goes back to the conversation around the IGEL software around the Tesla a minute ago, is that thin clients, no matter what HP wants to tell you, no matter what Dell wants to tell you, thin clients are not hardware, thin clients are software. And once you realize that thin clients are software that can be put on any type of commodity hardware, so when you buy a thin client from Dell or from HP or from IGEL, all it really is some commodity hardware that's been put together in a factory somewhere. In a lot of cases, it's probably even super micro. It's not even anything special that they created. It's their software on it that's supposed to make it better and different. So the thing I really want you guys to take away from this slide is the fact that thin clients are not hardware, thin clients are software. And once you realize they're software and you look around the industry, the only player in the market that truly understands that is IGEL. It's not even close. And guys, please make this a conversation. So as I'm going through this, jump in and interrupt me and tell me that I'm wrong, or tell me that you want to talk about something deeper, or you want to take a different direction. But as a company, and I'll make this brief, IGEL is the number three reseller of thin clients, or seller of thin clients. But as a software-based thin clients, they're by far number one. And one of the reasons why they're number three in the world is not because they're not a better product, it's because they're just really starting to show up here in the U.S., and that's rapidly changing. When I left the other thin client vendor that I used to sell and told them I was leaving to go to IGEL, the technical guys I talked to said, well, yeah, I understand why from a technical perspective, and the sales guys just told me I would regret that because they were the 800-pound gorilla in the space, and I told them I didn't care that they were an 800-pound gorilla. I wanted the best solution. So first to run Linux back in 1993, first to have a true software conversion to thin client software, and the first policy-driven management console, which you guys are going to experience here in a little bit. Very old company, founded by a company out of the early 1800s, but IGEL's been around for a while. So here's what we're going to cover in the presentation here. The reason why we would convert a PC into a thin client, what to look for, conversion options, operating modes, deployment methods, and then we're actually going to do it a couple different ways during the course of the presentation. All right, so why do we convert a PC into a thin client? Well, there's a couple reasons. One would be the money, and probably the biggest reason is the money. So for roughly 60, 70 bucks, certainly less than $100, I can take a piece of equipment that I already have, which is probably more powerful than a thin client I would buy, that I've had for 3, 4, 5 years. I can convert it into a thin client functionality device, and I can save myself hundreds of dollars and do that in mass and completely manage and control those devices. So as you can see, we have some numbers listed here, but it's certainly a great way if you have a delivered compute technology, and even in some cases if you don't deliver the workload, like through Citrix or VMware Horizon or something like that. It's a great way to save money. I paused there for a minute because I went back to the conversation we had a while ago around zero clients. I'll just throw it out now just so the recording catches it. Zero clients are a bad thing. You shouldn't implement them, and I'll be glad to expand upon that at some point with anybody who's interested in it. But certainly more of a gimmick than it is a technology. Zero clients are. All right, so what to look for in a conversion solution? How manageable is it? How adaptable is it? Does it support smart card? Does it support network authentication? Does it support various degrees of hardware, all over the place. The feature set, is the feature set current? Is the feature set growing and getting better? And that goes along with the software currency. Is that software up to date? Who's updating it? I can tell you firsthand, there's a safe somewhere here in my house that's got a Knoppix Linux distribution with a Citrix receiver on it and a whole bunch of scripts that I wrote for a client a decade ago, and I have yet to update that thing. So you can roll your own solution, no doubt, but keeping it up to date is yet another problem. It's one thing to come up with a solution, it's another thing to maintain it and keep it functioning and up to date software-wise. Support resources, there's a handful of companies out here that claim to have a thin client conversion software, but good luck finding somebody to pick up the phone and answer it whenever you call to ask a question around it. So in the world of IGEL, you call IGEL, and whether you have a thin client that's a physical machine or a thin client that's software converted, you're going to get the same guy on the phone and you're going to get the same answers because it basically is the same solution. Ongoing maintenance costs, right? It's one thing to buy something for next to nothing, but then have to pay through the nose every year because it costs a lot of money to keep it up to date and maintain support. Along that line too, there's some products out there that they'll sell you their thin clients cheap, but then they'll sell you their management console for a fortune. The IGEL management solution is included, so it costs you nothing. And then hardware compatibility, right? So in this case, we're running Linux 10. So if anything will run, if Linux 10 will run on it, we're going to be able to run on it. And so that's huge, which pretty much means everything Intel AMD based will work as a converted solution. Okay, so there's really two types of conversions. There's the Windows-based conversions, which I'm going to show you two ways of doing that here in a little bit. And then there's the non-Windows-based, which is usually always Linux or occasionally Unix. But that's it. So we have Windows and we have non-Windows. And so, the Windows story is really one of two things. It's either taking the Microsoft Thin PC, which is basically their operating system for thin clients that they sell to their thin client vendors, and making that available because you have the appropriate Microsoft agreement. The challenges with that are it requires an enterprise agreement, software assurance on whatever device it is that you're trying to convert. It's Windows 7 embedded, kinda. There's no real management utility outside of SCCM or Active Directory or a combination of those two things. And Microsoft isn't really interested in making money using that product, so it's not getting any development cycles that we know of. So Windows 10, you're not going to see it, and they're just not working on it. And then in that regard, if you use the Microsoft Thin PC, which I don't know if maybe some of you guys have, you kind of got to make your own way through it. You got to install your own receiver. You got to do all the things that that make it work and function as a thin client. Real quick, just to highlight this, like the install your own receiver thing. One of the key moments, and I love this part about IGEL. One of the key moments I realized IGEL was going to be the solution for me and my company was when I was working on a POC and the receiver for Linux, which is what we're using within IGEL, Citrix receiver for Linux, had an issue. And with IGEL, with a couple clicks of a policy, I was able to tell that thin client to use a previous version of the receiver because IGEL always includes 3 receiver versions in their distributions. So if I were to work with HP or Dell or whatever, I get to use whatever receiver comes with that, that firmware image. In the case of IGEL, I get to use one of 3 receivers at any point in time just by switching to the appropriate receiver that I'm trying to use. And if you guys are Citrix guys, every once in a while there's a receiver that comes out that may not be the best fit for you. Knowing that IGEL lets you pick the receiver version from within a single image, within a single set of firmware is just awesome. The other Windows replacements, and I'm going to show you 2 options for that, are shell solutions. So I'm going to show you an option where you actually take a browser and you auto launch the PC, auto log in, launch a browser full screen. That's one option I'm going to show you. The other is the desktop lock. There's Thin Scale as well as Thin Launch, which are other Windows conversion applications that run and replace the shell of the Windows Normal Explorer shell. So guys, let me pause there for a minute. Always feel free to interrupt me, but any questions around what we've covered so far? So what's the pros of using Windows? Well, it's Windows, and so you know it, you love it, you feel comfortable in it. You're familiar interface. You know that there's highly likely that every piece of hardware out there is going to work with it. There is the concern that the amount of horsepower needed to run Windows might overtax an old machine. So, but you feel pretty comfortable that the driver set's going to be there and it's going to work. The downside is it's still Windows, and you're still paying for and managing Windows, which has a cost to it as well. So it's certainly, like I said a while ago, the most functional endpoint for Citrix and other technologies, but at the same time, it has its downsides, cost and management being two of those. All right. What about the non-Windows based? There's really, there's two types of solutions. There's type 1, which is commercially supported technologies like IGEL UDC, which the current version is UDC 3, but UDC 2 is still available for sale up until sometime in June, I believe. And then there's Stratodesk, ThinLinks, and Devon IT. I skipped the Dell Wise PC Extender because I wanted to come back to that one. You guys, has anybody on the phone ever talked to Dell about their conversion software? And the reality of it is they don't talk about it because it's really not really intended for a lot of production use cases. It's really was built for a couple customers only. And if it works in your environment, great. If it doesn't, then you're just out of luck. And the way you can test me on this is, ask Dell Wise to bring it up and ask them all about it and see what they do if they try to sell it to you or not. Because the reality is they're probably not going to sell it to you because it's just not that capable of working. And you'll find out pretty quickly if you try to test it yourself. Type 2 would be the roll your own. I went back to the Knoppix scenario I had a while ago. I created my own Knoppix distribution with the Citrix receiver and some scripts, and I did it once. I'll never do it again because it's just not a manageable, maintainable solution. It was too much effort. All right, PC conversion operating modes, right? So I can convert a PC by booting it from a drive. I can boot from the actual disk itself. I could dual boot. I could boot from a USB stick or even a network boot. Talking to IGEL yesterday, and Alona, you probably won't know the answer to this, but I'll throw it out there anyway. It's kind of a new idea, a new thought for me. Citrix has provisioning services, which is a network Pixie boot solution. And when they first acquired that from Ardent, it would network boot Linux. Well, they kind of retired that because they didn't really need it. But now that they're doing Linux VDAs again, or doing Linux VDAs, there's the need to have PVS boot Linux machines. And so I was wondering if you guys are working with them so that you could boot IGEL Linux, basically UDC, from PVS. Do you know if that conversation has gone on at all?
Yeah, I'm not sure Andy on this one. I guess because it's just so easy to convert with UDC, you know what I mean? Like, so it's,
yeah.
Why would you fix it for that kind of thing? But,
well, if we've got PVS guys on the phone, they'll know why, and I'll bring it up to your management. I don't know if they've even thought about it yet, but I'm going to bring it up because it would be not only would it be an interesting thing and kind of good in some cases, but it would be a huge differentiator from everybody else if you guys were to do that. I'll bring it up to management at IGEL and see if they've thought about it yet or not. I think Citrix guys...
Do you see it used a lot since you were with Citrix? I mean, I've come across a few provisioning services, but cannot say it's been overwhelming for me. You know what I mean?
Well, no, it hasn't been, but that's because it's trying to boot a big fat Windows image. What if it booted a lightweight Linux image, aka IGEL? Could be huge.
Interesting.
It'd certainly be a differentiator for you guys. Anybody on the phone understand what I'm asking about here? Any PVS guys on the phone? On the call? Anyway, we'll get back to it. I think it's a game changer, and it would be, I think you might be able to do it in about 15 minutes if somebody just figured out a couple little things. It would be pretty simple, I think. But we'll come back to that.
Well, especially they have done it, right? So if Citrix had it in place, so that is true.
Well, that's what I'm getting back to. They had it in place. I did it several places. It went away, and now it's back again. So I think the ability to get it sucked into a PVS image might be 30 minutes. It might already work and be fully supported. We just nobody's really thought about it that I know of. Nope. Anyway.
I think you're right. I certainly haven't, but that's a good idea. I mean, for Citrix too. So interesting.
All right, so those were my boot options. My conversion options, right? The ability to get it converted over either a USB stick, DVD, network boot again, third-party deployment tool like LANDesk or SCCM, something like that, to actually convert the machine. This is, I should get back to this. One of the things I have in my bag is a USB stick. This is the newest thing, is the ability to convert from a USB stick, or not convert, but boot from a USB stick, so that you could literally can walk up to a machine and stick in a USB stick and boot from the USB stick and have a thin client up and running in a matter of seconds. Hey, Alona, are you monitoring the chat window? Okay. Never mind.
I haven't, so let me,
So guys, if you have
why am I not
questions,
seeing
throw
this?
it in the chat window. Okay, so let me show you an example of what one of my clients did. So I've got a presentation that Jason put together that I'll jump out here and show you. And this was a situation where Jason, who has actually a huge IGEL client now, needed a way to convert his machines during the pilot that did not lock him into the virtual desktop, and he could get back and forth. So there's an executable out there, there's a product out there called the Public Web Browser, PWB. And what Jason did was took this HTML5 compliant web browser that comes in a, let me go back, there's a key point here, that's very configurable through an INI file, and you guys are going to see me do that here in a minute. But it's either a Chrome-based version or an IE-based version, and I'm telling you, if you try to use it with Citrix right now, you better use the IE version, because Chrome has gotten pretty finicky on security type things and it won't let you do a lot of things that the storefront wants you to do with it. But there's the IE-based version, and this is what it looks like. So when Jason's machines boot up, they boot up from Windows boot. It has an auto logged in service account, and the first thing that happens is this application launches, and controlling it through the INI file, this is what the users see on their screen. Over 300 settings that he can control through just an INI file. So their look and feel is all completely controlled by this little browser-based thing that he's downloaded and uses. Really cool idea for kiosk, really cool idea for maybe the pilot phase of your project, if you have to be able to convert people back and forth, and I'll show you what I mean by that here in a second. So all you do is go out to teamsoftwaresolutions.com, download it, stick it on the network or locally somewhere, and then you start adjusting your file there, your INI file, and we're actually going to do that with you here in a second. And what Jason did is he put a group policy in place that auto logged in the machines using a service account, and if his help desk got a call that said, hey, I need to go back to my local PC, not the virtual desktop, all he had to do was remove that group policy, tell him to reboot the computer, and now they were back to functioning as they were before. So if you're doing any pilots, this would be a great solution for that, because it allows you to continue to let them have their local desktop, but push them into a virtual desktop, for testing purposes, and push them back if you needed to. All right, and this is Jason's contact information. I'll be glad to get you in touch with him. He loves this solution. He's really awesome technology guy. He's pretty amazing. But that's what he did during the pilot phase of his project. Any questions around the public web browser? So let's go see it work real quick. So here's a Windows machine that I have on my my lab here. A Windows XP, I'm sure it is. And in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, the domain trust relationship's probably busted, so I'll have to fix that. But we're going to take this domain joined Windows machine, and we're going to make it a thin client in literally 4 or 5 clicks. Maybe it's 6 or 7, but you'll see here. And if you guys have Windows thin clients in your environment today and they're domain, you know what? They don't even have to be domain joined. They can not be domain joined. As long as you can manage the INI file, you can manage the thing endpoint. All right, so let's do this. And I hate that I've got to do this because I should have done this before you guys got on, but it won't take but a second. Let's just hit cancel here. And let's come out here to, come on, control panel. And we're just going to unjoin it, rejoin it. System. I'm sure all you guys have done this 1,000 times a piece. See if I get prompted here or not. So Alona, while I'm doing this, do you have any comments on any of the topics we've had so far that you want to share based on your experience? Not to put you on the spot, but
Yes. Oh, no, it's all right. That was coming off mute. Yeah, so public web browser, I too had experience with that, locking, Windows even further, either PCs or Windows-based thin clients. And it's a cool little application out there. It's just something to keep in mind is that the underlying OS is still Windows, right? And you would need to make sure it's updated, it's patched. So it's definitely still a bit more maintenance, right, than something like if we talk Linux, where you can, easily lock it down. Very few people know how to write a virus for Linux, or if it's a writable even OS, so it's just a total different animal, so
yeah.
Way more secure than Windows will ever be.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head when you said it's still Windows, and a lot of us are trying to get away from Windows. Now, there are situations where you need Windows for maybe device functionality, but it's few and far between with IGEL. But there are scenarios where you still need Windows to run local apps or whatever it is that you need Windows under the covers for. All right, guys. So you're going to see me take this domain join machine from a PC, normal functioning PC, into a thin client. And I'm even going to have to go out and download the latest version of the software, or the software in general. What I have on my system already is the Chrome version of it, and I actually don't want to use that. So we'll jump out here real quick, and I'll do this because Microsoft IE likes to ask you lots of questions. And I got to get away from MSN because it wants to show me all kinds of stuff. So we'll do a public web browser. And you can download this thing for free. So let's make this bigger. All right, let's see. So you see how easy it is to get a hold of this thing? It'd be good if I could use the scroll wheel a little better. So here's the IE version. Let's just use the latest IE version here. And you're going to see how fast it downloads. There's not a whole lot to it. Let's just stick it out here on my domain controller for now. And we're just going to go out here and extract it. All right, so assuming that I would have put this into a startup, run once or run every time the machine boots up, what would happen is, the first thing that would happen is I would launch this public web browser app when the user logged in, either as themselves or some type of generic user. And they would go straight to a web page like this. But so like I was talking about a while ago, with two settings, I can fix this. So if I close this guy and I go back to the INI file, and I find, let's see, the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this to go to my storefront server. And you guys are smart IT guys. You know I probably should have made a copy of this thing before I blow it up, but that's okay. /Citrix/store web in this case. And I'm going to find, I could have just done that, but let's do one more thing. Let's find the kiosk setting. And let's change this to true. And let's just save this guy. Now I come back over here and run the executable again. And this thing should go straight into a Citrix login. Now, that's a good point. So that prompt there, so from this point on, if I had the receiver on or I had the HTML5 version up and running of the storefront, I would be able to log in and launch a virtual desktop. So I won't go any further with this unless anybody wants to see it further. And if, honestly, you could take this and download it and play with it in no time in your own environment. But this allows me to log in. I can go back to the INI file, and I can do some pretty crazy things. Let's see. How do I get out of this thing here? It's a good question. Oh, I got in kiosk mode, so I really can't. But there are other settings where I can actually make this thing go like this. I can't get out of it because I'm in kiosk mode. But there are things where if somebody were to happen to get out of it, let's say they were to Control-Delete. That's how I would get out of this one at least. I can say if somebody were to Control-Delete and get into Task Manager and kill the executable, I can do some really advanced things pretty simply. I could come into, and I'm probably going to put myself out on a limb here because I don't know where the setting is, but there's a setting in here that if somebody tries to stop it, to restart it. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, restart on close. So, hey, look at that. I figured I got lucky. So now, if I were to do that same exact exercise there, let's get rid of this thing. There's another, Windows thing. I got to make sure I take care of my policy. I'd have to disable Task Manager. That might be another thing. But here, now if I go here, I log in, like I was going to a while ago. And if I go to Task Manager and kill it, I find that in a matter of a second or two, it comes right back. So I take kiosk mode, I add my entry, I set up the automatically restart it, and I pretty much got myself a thin client. Any questions about this concept, guys? So probably one of the most impressive things about this concept is the cost, right? So for a site license, it's about $150. So, we're here to sell you IGEL, but this is a good little solution that has a little play in the space. It might be good for a lab or something like that, but now we're going to show you the IGEL solution here in a minute, and you're going to be taken back by how powerful that is. But so let me reboot this machine to get out of this world because I've got myself locked in now. And let's move back to the presentation. So guys, if you have any questions about that, definitely let us know. Like Alona said, she's been using that for a while, and it has its own little niche play, and it's it's not a bad solution. It's very cost effective, but still Windows. You're still managing Windows. It still has security issues. Probably not an enterprise solution, but certainly might work well in a lab or a small deployment or even a pilot, like we were talking about with Jason. All right, so Citrix Desktop Lock. Citrix Desktop Lock is a tool from Citrix that allows you to add the Citrix receiver as the shell of the desktop machine that's booting. In this case, it does have to be a domain member, and allows the user. You know what? That may not be true. They may have changed that in the latest release. But the thing is, Citrix Desktop Lock is a nice little tool. It has some issues because it's still Windows. It's a multiple login. The logins are a little slow, but it is a usable tool in some scenarios. And you can convert your Windows PCs or your thin client. So here's how you do it. First thing you have to do to make it work is to lower your security requirements a little bit and enable trusted XML for your XenDesktop site. I got to change that. I shouldn't say sire. I should say site. So that's step number one. Step number two is you go grab these ADML, ADMX files from the Citrix receiver, and you put that into your group policy or local policy so that you can manage the devices. More than likely going to be group policy. You go in and enable authentication for the Citrix receiver into your local or group policy. You add the Citrix storefront site. Well, first thing you do, enable automatic logins for either trusted sites or intranet sites, depending on which model you choose. I normally use trusted sites. You add storefront to your trusted sites or intranet sites, in whichever option you've chosen to go with. You add the Citrix receiver store GPO setting via those ADMXL files that you saw me highlight a minute ago that gets installed as or gets available as part of the receiver install. You install the receiver, making sure to enable the single sign-on component, which used to be command line only, but now you'll see in my demo that you can do that via GUI. You have to enable domain pass-through on your storefront server, and then you test. And the reason why that's important to test is because before you add the Citrix lock software, you want to make sure this thing's working, because once you lock it, you really can't do a whole lot of out-of-band testing. So it's very important that you make sure this thing works, and if you ever get in a situation where it doesn't work, you have to uninstall the lock software. So let me just continue here. To get the desktop lock software, you go out to the citrix.com downloads, and you'll find it under the additional components. You install it. It's a couple quick clicks, and next thing you know, your users are accessing a virtual desktop from a physical, or in my case, a virtual machine, and it's fairly seamless. It's not all that fast, but it's fairly seamless. So let me show you guys. Has anybody in here, has anybody on the webinar here used the desktop lock? So I have a funny story with one of my clients where I walked in one day and another consulting firm had convinced them to do tens of thousands of dollar project because their environment was slow, and the environment wasn't slow, the back end wasn't slow, the machines they were logging into with the desktop lock was so dirty it made everything look slow. Ken, that was you. Did you have a experience with desktop lock? Do you guys use it now?
Yeah, we're testing that. There's a unique situation that one of our clients didn't want to completely go to the VDI because what happens when we have a network issue. So we're testing this so that if we have an issue, they can still log into the local machine.
Right. Well, I got a better solution for you on that. IGEL has a boot from USB device, and you can actually just boot from USB, and if they get in a situation where they have to go back to local, you take the USB device out and turn the machine back on, you'll boot back into Windows. Yep. Okay, so this is my Windows device again, same one I used for the last demo. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to install the Citrix receiver. In this case, it's 4.4, and you're going to see during the install that it prompts me to enable the single sign-on. Like I was saying earlier, you used to have to do this from command line only, but now you do it through. Now you can do it through the GUI. So we'll go through it. Take a couple seconds here. So again, this is my virtual machine. Here's my enable single sign-on checkbox. We won't participate this time around, and we install, and we should kick in here and get the receiver installed. So this will take a couple seconds to do. So Ken, I appreciate you sharing. Anybody else using the desktop lock? Okay. All right, so we'll give this a few seconds here for the install to happen. I do need to know from you guys in a little bit, I've got the ability for you guys to log into a virtual machine and do the IGEL conversion on a virtual machine. So I do want to know in a little bit who's going to go through the actual hands-on piece of this. I can go create some IDs for you. All right. So there's the receiver installed. Let me show you what happens, what the user experience is at this point in time. So if I log in, well, I want to show you a couple things. First, anytime you install the receiver and you're trying to install the single sign-on process, you have to reboot, because you'll notice here that the Citrix single sign-on process is not running until after a reboot. So let's do that real quick. And fortunately, it's a virtual machine. It won't take but a second, and you'll see that the single sign-on service kicks in because it's a service. It's not just a process. There's a service that manages that. So I don't know how old you guys are, but as I sit here and wait on a virtual machine to reboot, I get impatient. But if you're as old as I am, 43, you spent lots of times waiting on physical machines for testing to reboot, and then you get anxious over a 10-second virtual machine reboot. All right, so I log back in. What I'll see is a couple things. One, that single sign-on process will be running. and I'll get bugged by the receiver that says, hey, I don't know where to go. And we're going to have to fix that before we enable the desktop lock, because we don't want the lock to kick in and this thing be prompting us for where to go. So let's clean up a little bit here. So if we got the task manager, we will find that the process, the single sign-on process, is running. So that's it right there. That's the Citrix receiver single sign-on process. And we'll go out to our domain controller, which is this guy here, and we're going to do a little policy change. I've got a policy already created that's going to allow us to, all those settings I showed you in the PowerPoint, those are going to be in a policy, and I will give that policy to this machine, and we will be rocking and rolling with the receiver test that I said you had to do before you apply the lock. All right, so that computer that I have is in the computers OU, but what I have is this this Citrix policy here that I've got currently applied to my entire domain. Not you wouldn't do it this way, but how I have it for the demo. And I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to for authenticated users, I currently have it as read but do not apply. I'm going to make it apply, and so that machine object is a authenticated user. And so if I go back and reboot this client one more time, we're going to find that my experience becomes a little different. It won't prompt me anymore. It'll take me straight into my environments, and I can start using Citrix Receiver minus the desktop lock effectively. All right, so let's log in with a different user. So I want to show you what the user experience is. So user 01. I should probably just kill my email because I think it's going to drive us nuts. All right, so we log in. First time the user logged in, so there's a profile that has to be created. Again, that's a Windows thing, right? So with IGEL, I would never have to worry about this profile management piece kicking in under the covers, or lack of profile management kicking in under the covers. And then this time you'll notice that I don't get prompted for the receiver and where it needs to connect to, because my group policy already had that in there. So if I go in here and look at the receiver config, we're going to see that the storefront that I care about in this demo is already configured, and it will just work. And something you guys don't know, or maybe no, none of you guys know, this morning before I did this demo, I did a Nutanix demo. And so, for example, this, we'll just do desktops. This desktop right here was part of my Nutanix demo from this morning, which is what's sitting on the table behind me. And so that's my, this will be a virtual desktop from the demo I did this morning. If you haven't seen Nutanix and you're a Citrix guy or just an infrastructure guy, you really need to. It's pretty amazing. Amazingly fast to get deployed and amazingly functional and fast. But anyway, what I've done here is I've proven that single sign-on works and that my receiver is working appropriately. So now in theory, I should be able to get out of this desktop. Here, we'll just disconnect because that'll make it really fast next time. That's the old Citrix guy trick, right? We disconnect from the desktop to show you how fast it is the next time we log into it. All right, so let's make one more change here. So it's a little important, not as important as it used to be. I'm going to log off as this user and log back in as the administrative user. And I am going to log in as the administrator, and we're going to install the desktop lock. So let's go back here. And we're just going to go back out to that share that I had hanging off my domain controller. And in that same folder as a receiver, there's the desktop lock that I downloaded from the Citrix website. So we're just going to run through this quick install. It's pretty easy and painless, but has to be deployed somewhere. It goes back to my conversation a while ago. Since we're doing this through Windows, we have to do this. One quick thing to point out here is I've got a client that's struggling a little bit right now with the beaconing concept of the receiver. And so we had a situation a couple weeks ago where the desktop lock was breaking because the receiver was breaking. It wasn't the desktop lock, it was the receiver couldn't get to the right beacons, and every time they would log in, it would try to take them through their NetScaler gateway on the outside versus their storefront on the inside. So not only is it a Windows thing, but it's the complexity of applications, in this case the Citrix receiver, that made that scenario a little tougher. And so all this is building up to why we might use IGEL as opposed to a Windows-based solution. Now this is actually going to be interesting. So the desktop I just showed you was my Nutanix desktop, which is the second desktop in the list. One of the shortcomings of the Windows desktop lock and the receiver concept is it's going to launch the first one that it sees. So if I come in here as user 01 and log back in, it's actually not going to launch the same desktop, and I have no control over that because the Citrix receiver / desktop lock is not manageable, and it's just going to launch the first desktop it sees, which will actually be the other one that you guys saw in that login screen. It's going to work, I think, but it won't be the same desktop that you saw a minute ago. And if it doesn't work, it's going to be a great example of why this is great but not so great. I think that other one's going to work because I had it up earlier. Now, the problem may be it may have to boot that thing up before it works, but we'll see. There we go. So this is not the same virtual desktop as before. It's a different one, and it's a different one because the desktop lock and the receiver combination is uncontrollable. It's going to launch the first desktop it sees, not the second one, which is what I chose earlier. But guys, that's the concept of the Citrix desktop lock. It's free. It's included with the Citrix receiver. It's included with your product. It's pretty usable, but there's some things to know and some things to manage properly to make it work right. Any questions around the Citrix desktop lock? All right, so let's just close this guy here. I don't need him anymore, so we'll just shut him down. All right, so now let's go back to the presentation and let's talk desktop lock, or start talking IGEL. Alona, I didn't mean to exclude you and all that. Is there anything you'd like to add around the two Windows options that we talked about?
Oh, no, I think you got it, Andy. That's, I've used desktop lock as well, and you were showing it on Windows 7, right? Is it Windows 7 or is it the...
That was Windows 7 version of it, yes. Yeah, it works on 7 and 10 now.
Oh, right, I was going to say, I don't think it works on Windows 8, but nobody probably uses it, or not many folks. Everybody's migrating to 10, so they do have a version for 10. That's good to know.
Well, they have a version now. I think it does work on 7, 8, and 10, but that...
Oh, okay.
It makes it usable, and maybe it's not 8. I don't know. I'd have to go look. To be honest, I sort of don't care because I really don't want anybody using it anyway. But it is a good, it's a doable solution, but it's not a good or great solution.
Right.
So a couple things to note. You still have to do these things. These Windows receiver-y type things have to be handled. So there's some Citrix policy templates that you can use here to make sure those things don't pop up. When you start to use IGEL or something else, you won't have to worry about this stuff. These guys, Jarian and Carl, are both great guys. They have some articles out there on how to do this. I would recommend reading those. I think by the time you look at both of them and take the information they both have, you can duplicate everything I just did there. They're good articles. Okay, so let's talk about the IGEL solution, and I've got a typo on the slide here. It's the current one. The current one is IGEL UDC 2 and 3. The most recent one is IGEL UDC 3. That's the Linux 10 version of it. I think IGEL UDC 2 is the is the Linux 5 version of it. So it's complete thin client firmware, fully manageable, unlike what we were talking about a few minutes ago with the other options. Extend the life of your PCs, your laptops, and the one I really like to point out is if you have thin clients that aren't bare bones like a zero client, but are a decent amount of power in them, you can convert even a thin client. So I've got customers that have other thin client products that are taking UDC and converting those thin clients and making them better. So it's just like with the Tesla comment from a while ago. We can take software and put it on whatever hardware we have and make it better with better software. So keep in mind you can convert thin clients as well. Very low cost, barrier to entry, good for mobile solutions. Now we have the USB drive, very good for industrial type things, even a tablet. I was with a client the other week and they were like, how are we going to convert all these PCs into thin clients? I took my USB drive out, stuck it into the same laptop that was hooked up to the projector, and within 2 minutes or less, we had, within 5 minutes or less, we had that laptop hooked up to the projector, connected to a virtual desktop, and converted using the USB drive. Really, really powerful story. Some basic requirements here, and Alona, you may have to straighten me out on the ones that are for the UDC3, but Intel, a lot of AMD as well. I think it's 2 gigahertz processor now, 2 gigs of memory, 2 gigs of storage. Is that accurate for UDC3?
That's correct. So if those are correct.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so let's do it. So let me get my bearings here for just a minute because I haven't done this demo in a little while. So I've got, out here on my environment, I've got a couple things. First thing I have here is an IGEL thin client. So let's boot this guy up first. Well, before I do that, just for the sake of the demo, just pretend this is a physical machine because it's really hard to demo a physical machine. However, if you guys are ever interested, we can do a couple things. With their new gateway, we could potentially do this demo online with you using a physical machine from as long as it's internet connected somewhere, as well as I could come on site. So I've done this several times where we drive to wherever. We've done it in New York, Boston, whatever, and we've been able to do a demo in person with physical machines. I don't have my media. That's not good. So here's what we'll do. I've got another environment we'll get into. This is more my production environment. What's that all about? All right, we'll get in my other production environment. You can tell I'm a true Citrix guy. I got Citrix all over the place here. All right, so let's just do this. So one of the applications is Citrix XenCenter, and in this XenCenter I have IGEL thin clients waiting to be used. And this is what I need to work with you guys on. I may have to circle back with you and have you set up a time with me to get you into this demo, but maybe not. We'll see. All right, so this is my training server. This is my training Xen server, and then this is my production environment. So what I want to do here is I'm going to make sure this guy's set to boot from the IGEL USB, or not USB, but ISO. And so again, think that this is a physical machine, and it's booting up from the CD, from the DVD. And what's going to happen here is we're going to take the conversion software and we're going to take the first 2 gigs of this hard drive, no matter what's on it, and we're going to overwrite that with an IGEL thin client Linux solution. So as you guys are going to see, normally when I do this demo in person, I'll bring like an old, I mean really old, 4 or 5, actually I got a 10-year-old laptop I bring with me to let people convert. And then you can also bring your own. Oh, and by the way, this is a great time to say this. IGEL has the ability to give you software so that you can either do a permanent thin client or even a 90-day thin client with your own gear. and I'm going to show you in a few minutes the management console, but you don't necessarily have to have the management console. Certainly not for the 90-day eval version of the software. All right, so this will take just a few minutes, and I mean literally just a minute or two to convert this thin client, this virtual machine, into a thin client here. Alona, can you talk through the way you guys partition the image? It's very different than anybody else. You have several partitions here that kind of blend together so that you can create custom solutions for people, right?
Right, exactly, Andy. So we have a system partition, which is basically where, you know, your registry, so to say, right, resides, and the Linux image. The operating system is non-writable. So if you were to log in into the shell as a root, you know, even though you do have access as a root and try to modify some files, after the reboot, it will all revert to the factory defaults, right, to what came with that. So the only way to modify something on the image would be like through your OS, right, to set your session settings, any other system parameters, and so forth. So what happens if you need to install a local driver or a small application? You technically can, right? But after the reboot, it will be gone. So for it to not disappear after the reboot, we can create a custom partition, which is basically a name for a custom build that IGEL engineers will create for you based on the installer. That being said, the app needs to have an installer for Debian, Ubuntu, you know, so make sure all the libraries are there and so forth. So it is doable. It does take a bit of time, just, you know, because of the amount of work that goes into the research.
Alona,
make sure.
your audio is so bad. I got to cut you off. We can hear you, we can understand you, but it's really choppy.
Really, I've been having problems with going to meeting all morning, so I apologize for this. I can try to dial back on the phone.
Yeah, you might want to do that real quick. Yeah, it might help finish things up the right way. Yeah, you start off fine that time, but then it got real choppy. All right, guys. So
is it better right now? Okay, never mind. I'll go back.
Bad. Hey guys. So that conversion's happened. That machine's rebooted. I don't know if you noticed, but it rebooted so fast I didn't get the CD out of it in time. But anyway, I rebooted it. Now we're up and running. And what I want to show you in just a matter of a couple clicks, I'm going to be able to reproduce the demos that you saw a few minutes ago. So let's see. So first things first, I've got my machine up and running. It's not licensed, so I'm going to go out here to my my management IGEL management server. It's called UMS, and I am going to get that a license pushed out to that guy. There's more than one way to do this, but the best way to do it is this way. And here's Windows again, which is lovely, but bothering me in a way I don't want. Here's my my thin clients currently that I have none. So I'm going to go out here and just hit this little radar thing. And what's going to do is it's going to scan the IP or drain, the subnet that I tell it to. It's going to try to find an IGEL unit. And this UMS.
I'm back. Andy.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, can you? Okay, good. I'm glad you got me off. I was going on and on. So I don't know how much you guys heard of what I was saying.
Well, let's come back to it.
But
let's come back to it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Okay.
That's fine.
Oh.
All right. So here's that machine. I've discovered it. I brought it under management, and because under my licensing, I've got a under my license management, I've got a license for that MAC address in my license file here. It now is okay with that device, and it's going to bring it under management. If I come back out to that thin client and reboot it, it will come up and it will be a happy camper and ready to play along. And what we're going to do next is we're going to manage it locally first, because I want you guys to see how, like Active Directory, it's locally manageable or systematically manageable, and the look and feel is very much the same. And I do want to point out, and I don't have the ability to demo this yet, but that management server that you just saw actually has a gateway product now that allows it to be managed. It allows it to manage devices on the internet. So that's going to be revolutionary, where we really can take this policy-based management solution to the internet and manage devices that are internet connected. Hey guys, somebody's got the microphone close to their nose or mouth or something. Sounds like a thunderstorm. It's gonna put me to sleep. Hey, okay, so this machine's coming back up. It should be ready to be managed. It should be ready to be used. And so what I want to do in the next, I don't know, 5 minutes is I want to reproduce the demo you saw with the other two devices, launching calculator or launching desktops. And I want to show you how quick and easy this is going to be. So it's network connected. It's licensed. I'm going to launch the local management tool here. And I'm going to come out here to sessions. And because we're doing Citrix, we'll go into storefronts. And we're going to tell the receiver to auto start. I'm going to go ahead and kick this down to 0 because I want it to happen right away. I'm going to put the, I'm not going to put the receiver, okay, so I'll put this receiver icon on the desktop right now. I do that sometimes I don't. It's going to make my demo a lot easier. I keep it in apply, I don't have to. I'm going to come in here to server, and I'm going to change this to storefront because that's what we're using here. I'm going to hit the star here, and we're going to say, just like I did before, front.XenTegra.com, and I'm just going to call this store because that's the name of my store, and hit OK. And I'm going to leave this normal for now. I'll change that in just a minute, but I want to show you how in those handful of clicks, I just took this thing from not knowing what's going on to being a Citrix thin client. Let's see. This is, yeah. We'll see if this works. I don't know if that's going to talk to the right environment or not. XenTegra. We'll see. Yep. All right, so as many of you guys know from a Citrix perspective, I just published apps to this thing. So if I click on command prompts, it's going to go out to that's actually my production Citrix environment, which, yeah, I was wondering if that would happen. It stole it from me. Let's go back over here, steal it back maybe. Yeah, interesting. So I got to go steal it back from myself. So all you Citrix guys know what just happened. I just logged in with the same user into the thin client, and it smooth roamed my session. So there it is. So now I just stole it back from that other one. I'm going to have to log into somebody else going forward, or I'm going to keep doing that. All right, so here it is. Not that one. This one. All right, so here's the command prompt. Here's my thin client again. So I just smooth roamed it back and forth, back and forth. Let's go back over here. Let's do that differently. I'll use a different user. Oops, I just stole it from myself again. It's like last night I was driving home and I couldn't get my turn signal to turn off. It's basically the same thing. I keep going from one direction to the other. All right. Yeah, so let's just do this. Next time we'll know to log in with a different user. All right, so let me demo that for you one more time with a different user. It's like your kids. Don't ever do this one at home, guys. I just don't have another demo user in my brain at the moment. I'm sure there probably is one. All right, so there we go. And this time I'll launch command prompt and it won't steal it from me because it's a different set. It's a different user. All right, so there's published apps. And yeah, we'll launch this one. Here's a published desktop or a virtual desktop or VDI desktop, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same, or looks all the same. So here's my desktop experience on an IGEL unit. So let me just pause there. Any questions around how I took, in a matter of 3 clicks or so, took a unmanaged device, brought it into management, and then connected it to my Citrix environment? I think that's pretty cool. Alona, anything to add there?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I was coming off mute on GoToMeeting. Can you hear me okay on the phone now?
We can, yeah. Anything you want to?
Sorry about early, guys. Yeah, so one thing I wanted to point out, and I found that to be very cool, you know, in UMS compared to other management tools out there. So when Andy deployed, well, anything actually to the device, it asks you, do you want to do it now or after the reboot? And if you do it now, it's real time, right? You can have the icon pop up on the desktop right there. All the other management tools, you need to reboot the unit, and then there is a good chance it may or may not pick up that XML file, right? So with IGEL, it's instant. You see it right there. It's quick. You saw how quickly he's done it. So that's, you know, another powerful feature of UMS.
So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to emulate the zero client experience, but with a more powerful, more robust, more manageable solution here, and it's not that much thicker than the zero client conversation. So let's do this. Let's emulate what I did with the desktop lock, but let's do it with IGEL. So here's a couple things I want to change. Let's come in here and we'll add my domain here. This one. So we'll add this guy, and I'll probably, I don't know, I'll make it locked, I guess. I guess with a zero client it's probably hidden, so we'll make it hidden. Let's go back over here to this, and those are all, oh, so it's under management now, so that's fine. Appearance, we will not show applications on the desktop, and enable the following. So let's log in. We'll start the following application. Oh, what did I call that one? I don't know what I called it. Okay, I got to go over to my delivery controller real quick because I don't know what I called that desktop unless anybody else remembers what it was called. Let's see. All right, so I'm just going to look at my studio real quick, make sure I get the right name because I got to type that in there if I wanted to auto launch. This goes back to the thing with the Citrix desktop lock a while ago. I can't control that with that solution, but with this solution I can tell it exactly which application to launch when it sees it, and it makes it so much more manageable. This is the one I want here, and I probably could have just clicked on there, but that's okay. Desktops, XenTegra space server desktop. XenTegra space server desktop. Okay. All right, let's go back to my IGEL units and let's type that in. XenTegra space server desktop. So if you guys know that as a published desktop. All right, so there's that piece. I could do some auto login things. I'm not going to do it here, but I could. I'm trying to emulate a zero client, so I don't want to show the desktops on the screen. I know there's at least one other thing I do want to do, and you know, we'll what I don't do, what I will fix very quickly because it'll be so simple to fix. I like to go into I didn't scroll down enough. The registry, and I like to tell it if somebody is in a session and they log off the Citrix session that it should log them all the way out, because again we're trying to emulate a zero client. So this setting here that I'm using says if somebody ends a Citrix ICA session, we want them to log out of the thin client and give them back to the login screen. All right, so we're taking effect now. And here we go. So because of what I did there, oh, I know one thing else I want to do. To make it a true zero client experience, we probably want to get rid of the taskbar down here at the bottom, but that's okay. So let's see if I could make this work for you guys. So there you go. I just turned a very thick functional device into the look and feel of a zero client. And I think, Ken, you were the one I was kind of chatting with earlier about zero clients. I don't need zero clients to have zero client functionality. I can use the real deal and do it. What do you think?
Looks good.
All right, so let's do one more thing, and then we'll bring this guy under management because I almost had a zero client experience. I noticed a couple things that I didn't do that I should have done. Let's do this because I'm going to make it look and feel like a zero client here. And guys, one thing to note here, I'm using the older version of the UDC software. It just happens to be what I have in my lab. It's very similar to the new stuff. The new stuff actually has a few more bells and whistles, but this is the older piece here. So just to show you one other piece of this, which is more of an aesthetic appearance type thing, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of that taskbar because I don't want my users being able to get into any of this. Let's see, desktop, taskbar. We're going to unuse the tab. We're going to make the taskbar go away. And from a background, I can control, look at this, this is awesome. I can control the background on a bunch of different monitors. In fact, it's more than just one or two. It can be up to 8, I believe. Let's see if it's here. Yeah. Anyway, it's probably because it's a VM that I'm having this. I can only do 2 here, but that's okay. So let's just change something real quick. Let's change it, change the color of it to I don't know, green or something, just so you guys can see that as well happening. So I took away the taskbar. I took away the, so now it's green, and actually the taskbar thing, it is one thing that I have noticed requires a reboot, so we'll do that real quick so you guys can see the full experience. So not only can it look and feel like a zero client, but it can be managed much easier and much better than a zero, even if you just use the local management concept. And in a minute, we're going to jump in and use the IGEL management server to do this. Okay, so what you've seen here is I'm now doing a zero client type experience as well as before this I did a non-zero zero client type experience where it was a full-featured Linux client when I was hosting apps and hosting desktops simultaneously. So let's come into this, log in, and I don't even have to show that login on the desktop screen there. I can get rid of that too, but it is nice to see that. And now I've got my zero client look and feel completely. Any questions, Alona? Any comments? So let's go do this. Go ahead.
Not quickly, if you guys want to talk about the booting, or let me know when, so that we can finish up that topic.
I don't remember what the topic was now.
the partitions on IGEL Linux OS. So we're talking about the custom partitions and all this stuff, but I don't know how much you've heard or.
Well, it was choppy, but we could understand what you were saying. But essentially, if we could paraphrase it and talk about the fact that you guys can create system partition and a partition for the Citrix receiver and Improvada, you guys can kind of shim this thing together so that it can be very functional and very fast, but very customizable, right?
Exactly. So in addition to that custom partition where we can create actual custom applications like, you know, the VPN client from Cisco AnyConnect, right? We can install that and give it as a custom build. The rest of the clients, like what you've mentioned, you know, Citrix client, VMware, they all have their own partitions, because if we want to update, let's say, just the new Citrix receiver, we don't need to deploy the entire build. We can do what we call partial updates. So, and that's what those are for, in addition to just creating custom build. Yep.
Okay, great. So guys, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to do all that, but do it from the back-end management server. And before I do that, I'm going to take that thin client that I have under management, and I'm going to wipe him out. And I'm going to do that from the back-end management server. I could do it from the thin client itself, but this will be easier. So I'm going to wipe him. And if I go back over here and look, where he should be ready to reboot and wipe himself out. And guys, by the way, that little prompt that you saw me do just now, because it came from the management console, I can make that go away. I can not give them the choice of saying now or later or okay. I can just make it happen. I'll take that away from them. Okay, so that guy's coming back up. I do want to come back out here to my management console, and I do want to bring him back under management, so that way I can make sure he has a license. I'll scan that network. Hopefully he's back up now. There he is. And I will just include him. This will push a license to the same license as before. It's all based on MAC address. And I'll come back over here and reboot him. All right, so while that's happening, let's look at something on our management console. Just like with Active Directory, where you create OU, logical OU partitions, or logical OUs, with IGEL, I'm going to create some directories. So let's see. Well, if I can figure out how to click again. Oh, that's why. Sorry, I got this active page here. All right, so there's my thin client coming up. So I'm going to create a new directory, and we'll call it the demo directory. And I'm going to take that thin client and I'm going to drop it in. An example might be, maybe I have a Las Vegas directory or whatever, and this is my Las Vegas office. This might be that. So let's say now. And come over here and say reboot one last time. That's because I brought it under. That's because I brought it under management. And it got a license file. That's why That's why I'm rebooting it this last time. But that's it. You don't have to reboot this thing very much. It may appear that way because of the demo that I'm doing here, but in general, all these configs can get pushed to it real time. Unlike the competition where you're taking an XML file and pushing it to it at the reboot every time. All right, so while that's coming up, let's do a couple things to make my life a little easier here. So first thing I'm going to do is, just like with Active Directory, we're going to create a profile like a policy. So in AD we have policies, in IGEL we have profiles. So with this policy, the first one we do is allow us to shadow it from the management console. So a couple things to know about profiles. You can assign them based on the firmware version. I usually don't, not for these demos, but you can, and I see a lot of people do that. If you notice, this is a little flatter looking screen. This is the up-to-date UMS, which is what the UDC3 console looks like, but still very much the same. So system, let's see. Alona, where is the shadow policy? I'm drawing a blank here.
Would be under remote access.
Yeah,
yep, right there.
I just wasn't trusting myself that that's where it was. Okay, so I'm going to check this box, which enables this setting to be managed, and I'm going to say allow shadowing. Let's see, I'm going to check this box. It says it needs to be managed, but I'm going to say no password required. Of course, you wouldn't do that in the real world, but that's for this demo. And the rest of it I'm going to leave as is, even though you'd want to go through each of these and make it what you want. So there's that policy. It's pretty that simple. And I'm going to drag this shadow policy and stick it on this directory that I created and tell it to apply now. And if we come back over here to our thin client, we should see that he's getting a policy. And again, I can hide this. I don't let them see it, but I am for now. And then if I'm on my UMS server, I can right-click on this guy and say shadow. And it's possible that I've done something wrong here. We'll see. I'm doing all this pretty real time, so oh, I forgot to go away for the prompt. I didn't do something right, but that's good. So let's go back over to UMS, and there it is. There's the shadowing. That's great. But let's go real time, fix what I did wrong. So we come back into here, we edit the configuration, and we go back to the system, which you can tell is highlighted there, which means something's enabled. Shadow, and allow user, allow input, prompt user. Here it is. So if I do that, hit save, apply and send to thin clients now. If I hit save, I would have got the same prompt. And now I go back here and look, he'll be getting a policy. And if I go back to my management server and try to shadow that one again, this time I'll be able to do it without getting prompted. All right, and there you go. I'm able to shadow. So the next thing I want to show you guys is I want to show you the ability to configure all those Citrix policies again from this time from the UMS console. So let's create another profile and let's go through and do everything I did there at the end for the zero client look and feel. So we're just going to call this guy Citrix for the sake of argument here. And here's where you can pick the version. So I only have one machine under management, which is this firmware, so it's the only option. But if I had a bunch of different pieces of hardware or software, they would have different options. Really powerful. Let's see. So let's go here. I do want to show you something in Alona. I'm sure I can find it real quick. But the receiver conversation, Citrix receiver selection. So look at this, guys. This is what I was talking about earlier. I get to choose any of these three receivers. No other product on the market does that. I'm just going to say the default for now, but the fact that these guys are smart enough to know that you might want to have receiver options from within a single firmware, and the way they do their layering, that was the moment I realized, yeah, this is the right product for my customers. I also like the fact that I was able to find that without even looking real hard. The UI of this console is just great. All right, so you remember this setting from earlier. We'll auto start this guy. We'll say 0. I won't put it on the menu or anything. Let's see. So server. This was one of my settings from a while ago. We'll enable this. We'll drop down to storefront. We will hit the plus, which was a star in the other console because it was the older version, and we will go storefront XenTegra.com. And we'll do store again. And on the domain, we'll type in AW Lab. And change this to hidden, I guess, because we're trying to emulate the zero client experience. For login, we will come here and say, what was it, XenTegra server desktop. And then for, what was it, the registry. So this is basically saying at the end of a Citrix session, don't mess around, just log them off, which automatically will log them back on. So let's hit save here. A couple of the things I did last time that I'll go ahead and do again here. Let's create another profile just for the sake of this. Well, let's leave what we had there, and we'll come back and we'll clean up like the taskbar and the color and all that good stuff. So, okay, what did I not do? I did not take that policy and drag it and drop it onto my container, my directory. So if we come back over here, we should be getting a policy. And I go right to a login screen. I log in with the right user this time. Store invalid. So let's type that in correctly this time. Oh, you know what I did? And this is awesome because it shows how quick it is to fix something. I think I put the wrong domain in there. So go back to my Citrix policy, edit configuration, sessions, login, server. Yep, this is the wrong domain. That's for my lab. So let's just edit this guy. It's XenTegra local. And that's where it might have been a good idea not to hide that, but you know, we're again trying to emulate a zero client. So we say okay. Back over here, we're getting a push again. You got to love how this is real time. If you're a Dell Wise shop and you're having to deal with those XML files, this is just killer. It'd take forever to fix what I just showed there. All right, so let's do this. So while that's rebooting, so I can show you what the user interface looks like. Let's create or what the user experience looks like. Let's create yet another policy, another profile, and we'll just call this the UI profile. And we want to do those other things we did a while ago with like the user interface. So let's, on the desktop here, background. Oh, here's where I can see the eight monitors. Pretty cool. So for monitor 1, let's just change this guy to orange this time or something. And this is where you can put your company logo in. But you can change the wallpaper for up to 8. And then what was it? The taskbar. Let's take that away. And we'll save this guy. We won't apply it yet because I want to show you without it first, but we'll come back to it. All right, so all right, so it looks like it's working, and then boom. So I did see something that I didn't do there, so we'll clean that up in a second. But now we've got basically a device that goes straight into a virtual desktop. Alona, anything you want to add to what we just showed there?
Yeah, so on the Citrix receiver, what you showed how to select the version, Andy, once the build is updated, right, so you're on Linux 5, Linux 10, for example, has the latest version of the Citrix receiver for Linux, right, so you would get all the latest versions listed that are part of the firmware.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess what I'm showing is an older version, so they didn't see that. They keep it up to date.
That's all right. It's the same. It's the same. Yeah, it's exactly the same location where you went. So, and that makes it nice, right? That part doesn't change. So, just to point out that there are updates. We do them frequently, especially when something so important, right? Like the version of the client is released from the vendor.
Yeah.
So it is integrated into the build.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about a while ago was software currency, and that's what you're pointing out is that they keep it current specifically around Citrix in this case, but keep it current around a lot of things. You were able to quickly update, when Citrix updates the Linux receiver, so does IGEL. All right, so now we've got this orange looking, completely locked down looking screen. We log in one more time, and we should get our desktop automatically. And then we'll show that if you log off, you go back to a login screen, and we've essentially made a very nice, manageable desktop appliance. So let's log off to show what happens. So it saw the end of a Citrix session, logs you off the thin clients, brings you back to a login screen. So guys, that's what I have for you. I wanted you to see that much. I want to work with you if you want to jump into the lab now and do this for yourself. But hopefully that was impactful and you got a lot out of it. There's many other things to show. As you can see, if you look at that console, there's thousands of settings for Citrix and other things. You don't have to have IGEL to jump into Citrix. You can use it as a Linux desktop if you wanted to. but a lot of things you can do within this environment to manage these devices. Extremely powerful and nothing like it in the thin client space. So let me kind of pause there. Anybody have any questions or anything you want to talk through or any additional demos that you would like to see? Alona, is there anything that you normally would show somebody that I didn't show?
Sorry, I was just checking for the code that you talked about earlier. I unfortunately don't have it to pass it on right now, but we can email, right, Andy?
Yeah, if you would, when you get it, just do a reply all to the calendar invite, and it should have everybody on it. And you can just give them the code, even the people who didn't show up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So one other thing that I use often on the UMS side, and that's needed for receiver, is deploying certificates, right? And that is done under files, and it's very simple: new file, and then you browse for the cert and push it that way. And again, it's much simpler than what WISE is doing out there, with WDM and things like this, because you basically need to package a cert. It's not very straightforward when that is done. So, but I think you got it. The rest, was.
Well, you mentioned some good things there. So there's the ability here to upload files like a certificate, which you can take it and stick it in the appropriate directory, which is huge. And like you said, the other guys don't really understand. They don't really manage it very well. In addition to that, the firmware, right? So, everybody always wants to know, can I update these things from here? But absolutely, you get the firmware, you pull it here, and you tell it which machines to push it out to, and you can manage all your firmware options from the UMS as well.
Yeah, and it goes out and checks automatically for you on IGEL's website if there is a new build. Unlike, again, with other vendors, you would need to go to the website first, download it, and then import it into the management console. So this one is done automatically, and looks like there is a new build for Andy right there. And it's smart enough to know what clients you have from IGEL, either it's a hardware client or if it's a software-based client, and it will only pull the firmware that's suited for that particular model. So, and when you guys see OS here, it means it's a software client. If it was a hardware client from IGEL, it would say LX. That's, and different builds, but it would be in the same pane right here. So,
yeah. I would kind of leave it like this. IGEL is the only product out there that actually gets the space and fully lives in it. There's other companies out there that are big companies that have thin clients, and they're usable, they're functional. But IGEL, this is their world. This is what their company was built for and what their company does. They're not looking to be a big giant in the industry with every product under the sun. They're looking to be a great thin client solution company and a management of software solution company. And that's what makes them special and why we work with the products. So, well, guys, if nothing else, I appreciate your time today. And what I'm hopefully going to do is I'm going to have a recording of this, and we'll send the recording out to everyone. But if there's nothing else, I appreciate your time, and hopefully you picked up a lot here, and hopefully IGEL is in your future. Feel free to shoot me any questions that you might have. I guess maybe I should put my email address up here on the screen while I got the recording running. So you can reach out to me at Andy. So that's my email address. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And with that, we'll end it. Alona, thanks for your time. I thought the demos went well. The overview was well. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of it.
So here's the link, and you can grab it right there for the UDC.
So Alona, what I'm going to do here is put that in the notepad as well, because.
Let me just confirm that I typed in the right address, since we're still. I think that was it.
Yep. Yeah. So what we're talking about here is if you want to demo the solution, that's the URL to go to. At least we think it is, right?
That is correct URL. I just confirmed.
I guess I could have been smarter and just clicked on it. Uh-oh. I didn't get there. That's because I have junk in front of it.
Yeah, see, so you can, yeah, no, I checked it. We're good.
There. Yep, that's it right there. All right, guys. Well, thanks for your time, and I'm going to end the recording now, but in the session. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, everybody.
So, Richard, if you look at, it should work right there. www.igel.com/demo-its. Did you get it?
Yeah, I just tried it, so it works.
Yeah, I've got it up on the screen here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you do too. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hey, Richard, give me a call if you can't get to it. Oh, there's Jeff. I know Jeff.
And we just implemented live chat, well, not just, a couple of months ago, so that's a new feature on the website when the website went live. So if you need a real-time answer,